Do you want results or excuses? You can't have both. Everyone says that they want results, yet by the end of the year, most people are left with dead hopes, dreams, and a ton of excuses to why they haven't been able to bring their dreams to life. But don't worry, by the end of this video, I'm going to share with you the top 10 self-sabotaging behaviors that cause this. I'm going to break 2 of those down, sharing the subconscious patterns that are actually having that arise for you. Hint, these are actually self-protective mechanisms. Then I'm going to share with you 3 really practical steps of how to actually transform this, not just at the level of the surface of behavior, which is what 90% of other people might tell you, but instead actually how to get to the root of this and how to transform it for good, so that next year you can have the type of relationship, life, love, passion, money, finances that you actually deserve to live. So these are the top 10 self-sabotaging behaviors. As I'm reading these out, just be reflecting on where these might be showing up in your life right now, because from that space, we're actually going to be able to work on that in a second. So I'm going to start at number 10 and I'm going to work all the way up to number 1. So number 10, avoiding conflict. In at number 9, isolating yourself from others. Number 8, needing everything to be perfect. Number 7, feeling unhappy, even though on the surface, everything looks good. Number 6, mindlessly scrolling social media. Number 5, choosing friends who don't champion you. Number 4, caring too much what people think of you. Number 3, dwelling on past relationships. Let's break these down. So before I do this, I just want to remind you that everything in our lives, externally and internally, is data. It's giving us feedback, it's giving us information, and the skillful part of learning how to essentially be more human, to be our kind of optimal selves, is actually learning how to work with this data that our unconscious mind, our nervous system is giving us, so that we can actually start choosing life in a way that is way more fulfilling, way more connective, and actually aligns with who we are and the life we're here to live. So we're going to start at self-sabotaging behavior number 2, and that's overworking. Now, this is celebrated in our culture, but the behavior of overworking is often our unconscious patterns from childhood manifesting in adulthood as a desire and a need to really prove ourselves in the world. Now, that can be healthy, shooting for excellence can be a really healthy thing, but if we're finding ourselves constantly overworking, constantly trying to prove ourselves to the world, inherently what we're saying there is, I'm not enough. And if it's coming from that place, other people will feel it, and it won't really feel that great to you. Often what tends to happen here is when people are overworking and it's coming from this place of like, I'm not enough, is that people tend to be working towards goals, aspirations that aren't actually true to their core. They're not actually fully aligned. So as you're overworking, what actually tends to be happening is you're working in a direction that isn't actually what you really want to do. I'm sure many of you have actually been in this position. You might be in it right now. I've been there, and I got to a space in my life where I was like, this has to change. And really that information, as we said before, that's the data that's coming up. So if it's alive in your system right now, like, don't worry about it. This is a great thing. And it's an opportunity for you to actually get into alignment with your life. So all of that work, all of that effort, all of that energy can actually go towards something that you actually sincerely care about, that brings you fulfillment, that you're going to feel really proud about in your life. Now, just to like re-clarify this point, because people get hung up on this, I have clients who are multimillionaires who come to find me. They have everything that they want. They overworked, they overachieved, but they recognize, they had the awareness to see that it wasn't creating the relationships, fulfillment, inner satisfaction that they actually needed. So you can have a yacht, a plane, a multi-million-dollar house, but if you haven't come to the internal satisfaction, self-love, self-peace, self-acceptance, then anything else on the surface isn't going to feel satisfying. It's not going to feel complete. So don't get stuck in this self-protective trap. Recognize it, and in a second we're going to start talking about how you can actually work with that. Coming in at number 1 is the self-sabotaging behavior of negative self-talk. So what is negative self-talk? Most of us will have experienced it. It's that voice in your head that when you do something towards your dreams, your goals, or maybe you're taking a step towards that relationship, it's that voice that says, who are you to be doing this? You're not good enough. That was terrible. That needs to be better. It's kind of this like strong voice that kind of like really makes your energy drop and ends up having you kind of push back and walk away from the thing that you're really wanting to step into. So unconsciously, what's happening here, there are self-protective mechanisms that are kind of kicking in because the chances are the thing that you really want is a cue of danger for your nervous system. That might be that you don't believe you're worthy of having that thing. It could be that in order to do that next step, you're going to have to become more visible and more seen, and that could be a cue of danger. Or maybe you received a lot of negative self-talk from mom or dad or bullies at school, and if you feel like you're going to be meaner to yourself, it's a kind of protective mechanism that no one else can be meaner to you. So these are all kind of different areas that it can be coming from. Feel into that for yourself. What's really needed here is radical self-acceptance. Self-acceptance even for the part of us that's judging ourselves. So don't judge the judge. We have to also accept that part of us that's judging us and recognize that it's also just trying to protect us. And from that space, we can have some sincere compassion and we can begin to move those beliefs and that energy. And the steps I'm going to share in just a second is going to support you in transforming that for good. So now we're going to walk through the 3 steps so that you can learn how to transform any sabotaging behavior at the root for good. So we're going to start with step 1. This one seems really simple, but it's really important. First part is actually putting our hands up and saying, look, I accept that there is this self-sabotaging behavior in my life, and I love myself enough to actually do the work necessary to actually change and transform this, both for myself and for all of those around me. Remember that awareness precedes choice, but awareness itself is not enough. Now, step 2 is what most people miss. Most people think that they just need to become aware of something and then change their behavior. But the problem and challenge with that is that if we don't get to the root of what's actually going on and we just change the behavior, it kind of becomes like whack-a-mole. And you're just like changing behavior, but it's like showing up here and it's showing up there. So actually, what's way more skillful is to get to the root and completely remove it. Here's the formula that's going to help you do this. So at the top level, we have behavior. And in this example, we're going to use the self-sabotaging behavior of avoiding conflict. So beneath the behavior is a story. Now, the story might be something like, I'll do it later. I'll deal with it later. This thing doesn't really matter so much. I'm just going to let it go. That's the story. Now, if we go down to the root and we go to the original experience that happened to that individual, to that person, that could be something like at the root of this issue, which we're going to call an OE, which is an original experience, something like dad was really shouting at mom and she was crying for hours. And eventually that kept happening, and eventually she left the relationship and mom and dad broke up. And that left a pattern showing the child that conflict wasn't something that was safe. That's just one of many, many, many examples. Now, from that space, from that original conflict, that created an emotion in the child, which would be something like fear, sadness, confusion, a lot of different emotions that could be arising from that space. Now, from those emotions, a layer up is the belief. So the belief from those emotions and that experience might be something like having conflict or having conversations with people I love is an unsafe thing to do. Or expressing yourself in a relationship is dangerous, but we might not even be aware that that belief is hanging around there in the background. Yeah, so as a situation comes up where maybe conflict could arise, and that could be in any area of our life, it could be in your business, it could be in your relationships, it could be in your friendships, whatever it is, there's going to be situations where this arises, and instead that kind of like subtle emotion starts to arise, and then very quickly we're just like, oh no, I'll deal with it later, it doesn't matter, and we kind of squash it and push it away. And then this cycle just loops and loops and loops until we actually deal with what's going on here and create that level of connection and safety for ourselves. And we begin to repattern new ways of being in relationship to show our nervous system, because the nervous system is show, not tell, that it's actually safe to have and express our needs in relationship. Conflict can be something that can be beautiful and healthy. It doesn't have to be something that is violent or scary. And we can actually take that little boy or girl and we can have them grow up into fully fledged human beings. So I really question you, use this framework to really ask yourself, like, what is one of your self-sabotaging behaviors? What is the story you tell yourself? Where does this come from, or where might this come from in terms of its original experience for you? What emotion did that bring up in you? And what belief might have been created from that space? And once you've got that, you've got the full map. With that map, you can take action at step 3. So you will know what the behavior is from the last map that you were doing that was creating self-sabotaging behaviors. You'll also then know what its opposite is. So that's the direction that you're going to move in now in step 3. So you're going to begin taking action towards that new reality, that new behavior for yourself. And in order to do that intelligently, it's good to really recognize that the old patterns of comfort might come up as you begin to move in that direction. Just notice it and continue to move in the direction that you want to move in. You have a prefrontal cortex. We can recognize these things in real time. That's the past coming in, and then redirect it towards the life that you actually want to live. live. And to really strengthen that and support that, I really encourage you to get around groups, people, communities, coaches, people that are going to really help you continue to make those changes. Because we're mammals, we really do well in groups. So that's why, having accountability, support is really going to help those changes last. And right now, I'm going to ask you, what is that one thing that you know that you should be doing or you could take an action on right now? As I say that, something will be coming up in your mind. It'll be triggering something. That's the invitation right now to take an action, to take a step. Write the email, message the friend, whatever needs to be done. Just take one tiny little step, one bit of momentum towards that direction right now.